2024. Time is now 5:07 p.m. In attendance, we have myself, Committee Chair Akeisha Casimir, Committee Member Mr. Albert Benahan Grajales. I will recognize the board members that are in the room. Chair Christine Baptiste Perez, Mr. Robert Traber, Mr. Willie Medina. Is that all for board members?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I want to see the presentation. No, we can't ask questions, but
You can't see it from there, from up there? Oh, okay.
ask a question. And sit at the committee.
Okay. Just joined. For the, let the record reflect that committee member Tahiba Bain has joined the meeting. And the first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes dated February 28th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So move on, Mr. Benahan.
Mr. Benahan
This is not on.
makes the motion. Mr. Benahan, you gotta press, did you press the button? Press the button there and you could.
Gotcha.
Mr. Benahan has made a motion to accept the February 28th, 2024 minutes. Do I have a second?
I second. They second the meeting, the motion.
I think
Can you not hear
Ms.
me?
Bain is trying to,
That turns it on. You
Yeah,
push that
I
button.
second.
her mic isn't muted, Sam. I don't know why she's not coming through.
I heard her online
I don't know.
make a second.
Yeah.
Oh. Do I have
Yeah,
a second for the minutes
I
from
second.
February 2024, February 28th, 2024? Ms.
I
Bain?
second. Yes, I second the motion. Can you not hear
Disable
me?
it.
She's
Mute.
waving her hand saying she's second. That is that head shake means that she's second. Okay. Sam,
Can you hear
could you
me
do me a
now?
favor and just work with Tahiba to see if maybe she can dial in? I'm not sure what the issue is. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is
Wait.
the
Madam Chair,
discussion and possible referral to the full board of the budget update. And we have Dr. Camilla Levy-David doing the present. And I'll let you take it away, Dr. Levy-David.
good evening. Our fiscal goals remain the same: to maintain a structurally balanced budget built on a comprehensive financial plan comprised of all fund sources
Is on.
that ensures real cost management and the most effective educational program possible. To maintain and enhance the school-based budgeting model grounded in empowerment and accountability at the school level and fiscal accountability, to ensure that fiscal accountability is through continued integrity, transparency, reporting, and systems management. And our
Can you
goal
guys
is
hear
to
me?
engage in comprehensive fiscal management encompassing analysis, internal controls, and innovation in order to secure resources, optimize resource utilization, and attain fiscal stability. The superintendent's proposed budget for fiscal year 2025 is $309 million. We're projecting expenditures of $309 million in our general fund and alliance combined. This is a $41 million projected increase in expenditures, which is equivalent to 15% year over year. Within the $41 million request, we are requesting $16.7 million from the city. We are also projecting an $8 million increase in ECS Alliance funding.
Hello?
The gap of 16.3 million, we are expecting to use 12.8 million in reserves and $3.5 million is what we're intending to use cost reduction strategies to meet the gap. The factors that are causing the increase is increasing student enrollment, especially in our English language learner population and special education. We also have collective bargaining agreements that we have to abide by, which is going to cause an increase in salary expenses. We also have increases in other services such as transportation and rising costs in out-of-district special education tuition placement. As we all know, we have the American Rescue Plan Act, which was enacted in 2021, which resulted in the Elementary Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, otherwise known as ESSER. These grants are due to expire in September 2024. After September 2024, we will no longer have the ability to utilize ESSER to support our essential services, and we will be required to use a larger portion of these services to be funded in our operating budget. Next slide, please. We currently have a budget of $268 million in operating and $34.5 million in grants. We are requesting $92 million in FY25, a $16.7 million increase from the city. We are projecting an $8 million increase from State ECS Alliance grant. This leaves us with the $16.3 million budget gap, which, as I mentioned, we intend to close with carryover reserve funds and of $12.8 million and $3.5 million in cost reduction strategies, such as the plan that we have to close schools that are underperforming and not safe for our students. Next slide, please. As you can see on this slide, the percentage increases going back 9 years has been very minimal, averaging to only 1%, which is not keeping up with inflation. With the 15.4 increase, we will still not have made up for the small percentages increases that we've been given in the past. In order to maintain the essential services and make moves towards improving the quality of the education provided to each student in Bridgeport Public Schools, we will need additional funding from the city and state. Next slide will be presented by Marlene Siegel.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone. On this slide, we see that the average dollar increase over 9 years has been approximately $2.8 million, or an average annual percentage increase of 1.09%. Now, a 1% on average increase is highly inadequate considering the escalation of costs over that period. And it's important to understand that the insufficiency of revenue growth in each year results in a higher compounded monetary need in each successive year. Now, the total amount of the budget increase is approximately $41.3 million. And with that amount, the average dollar increase over 10 years would be approximately $7 million. And the percentage increase over that same period would be 2.68%, which is still a relatively low percentage in terms of average growth, but is very reasonable. Next slide. Now, this slide is showing the general fund projection for 24-25 in a pie graph format in order to illustrate the percentages across the main categories, such as certified salaries, non-certified salaries, employee benefits, contracted services, and the various other areas. And it's very clear that almost 80% of the budget is expended on personnel, where personnel is comprised of certified salaries, non-certified salaries, and employee benefits. Other major components of the budget would be pupil transportation, as well as operation and maintenance of buildings. Next slide. Here we see the general fund summary for 24-25 compared to 23-24. So I want to emphasize first that this is showing the general fund only. The general fund consists of the city share of the budget plus the state base ECS share. It does not include Alliance ECS. Alliance ECS comes to the district through a grant funding stream. And so in the third column, we see the current year general fund budget. And if you scroll down, we will see that the grand total is $239,735,982. Now we have an operating gap due to the historical underfunding of the district. And so we are projecting that we will need between $6 to $8 million in order to balance the budget. And we will secure those funds by utilizing reserves that are on deposit in the internal service fund. And these reserves represent carryover surplus funds that we have deposited over the last few years during the during the COVID pandemic in the ESSER funding years. It's also important to understand that we are projecting a range of between $6 and $8 million at this time based on the latest fiscal trends. We are doing everything possible to reduce the amount of money that we will need to withdraw from the internal service fund. And we do that by leveraging our resources, such as using grant resources wherever possible, wherever surplus funds accrue. And so the actual number should be lower than $8 million, but it could vary. And we will not know the exact number until the end of year close process in the summer, in August. Now, in the next column, you will see the $8 million, which is the upper range of the amount that we have to withdraw. And it is distributed in positive and negative numbers across 4 lines. And the reason for that is we have to short the pupil transportation line and the special ed tuition line due to the shortfall in the funds. And then we increase the lines for personnel where we need the money. So when you look at the pupil transportation line, the amount that we're projecting for this year is actually around $26.8 million. It is not 18.3. We expect that it will be in the range of 26.8. And for special ed tuition, we are projecting approximately 21.5 million, not 19.8. So we felt it was important to show how certain lines are shorted in view of the gap and how we close that gap. Next slide. Now, on this slide, we elaborate on the key factors that are noted on slide 7. So I'll briefly make a few comments in each section. So in regard to our student enrollment, our enrollment is increasing after several years of decline, and the decline occurred during the COVID pandemic years. The enrollment is now increasing. And in October of 2022, the enrollment was 19,133 students. As of March 1st of the current year, 2024, the enrollment is 19,747 students. And that is a significant change. It represents growth of 614 students. In the areas of special education and English language learners, there has been substantial growth. And both categories represent our special needs populations. Now, in special education, the percentage has increased to 19.35% of total enrollment, up 213 students over the same period of time, October 1 of 22 to March 1 of the current year, 2024. And our English language learner population has experienced astronomical growth, moving from 5,028 in October of 22, which was already higher than the prior 2 years, to 5,792 students on March 1st of 2024. And that number represents 29.33% of the total population, a change of 764 students since October 1 of 22, or 15% higher. So it's important to understand that our special needs populations in special education and in English language learners require more intensive services with lower student to staff ratios, which have a higher cost factor. Now, in the second category, collective bargaining agreements and health insurance, we want to emphasize that in the area of collective bargaining agreements, specifically salary growth, we're projecting that there would be a cost factor of an additional $7.5 million just for salary growth. And that would include salary plus Medicare or MRF, which is the non-certified retirement system, and Social Security where applicable. Now, health insurance has been increasing every year. And for 24-25, the current projection is between 4.7 and 5%. This is not the final percentage. The final percentage is usually announced in the May-June period. And so there could be further adjustments. And finally, in the third category, it was noted that the ARP, American Rescue Plan, ESSER grant, the main grant, will end September 30th of 2024. And we are continuing to leverage our resources in the ARP ESSER grant to optimal benefit in order to reduce the impact on the operating budget. For next year, in 24-25, we have built into this budget plan continuation of kindergarten support, which means the substitute paras in kindergarten, 1 per 2 classes, which is approximately $1.3 million. We have also built into this budget plan the maintenance of the number of guidance counselors and social workers at 47. Now, 47 is lower than the ESSER number, but it is higher than the pre-ESSER number. So before the advent of the ESSER grant, there were 40 counselors in the district and 41 social workers. For next year, we have built in 47 counselors and 47 social workers, including maintenance of social work support for the homeless initiative and for SPPT, Support for Pregnant and Parenting Teens. And we're doing that through a combination of the general fund and various grants. And that would include some new grants. And finally, there are mandated and other positions deemed as essential in ESSER that we have built into this budget plan. And those positions would include special education teachers previously funded in ESSER, ESL teachers funded in ESSER, contracted services for special education, substitute services that were offset in the ESSER grant, and a number of other types of services that are deemed critical to seek to maintain. Next slide. This slide illustrates the city and the state share of our operating budget. Once again, the operating budget consists of the city share, the state ECS, and the state alliance ECS. The city is currently contributing 28.2% compared to the state at 71.8%. So clearly, we rely on state revenue to support our district substantially. Next slide. Now, as was mentioned, the average growth in the budget over the last 9 years has been approximately 1.2%, and it is a very low percentage, and it is insufficient to ensure that a district can function with all required services. The requested amount from the city for the addition to the city share is $16.7 million, which is 6.2% of the total budget or 22% of the prior city share. And the reason we identified 16.7 million is because that number is comprised of various services that we regard as mandated or non-discretionary to cover escalated costs, as well as some essential services that were funded in the ESSER grant. So it would include the collective bargaining, salary growth, the health insurance growth, any growth in MRF or MERS, that's the non-certified retirement system, transportation, any growth in utilities, and various other essential services. Next slide. So how do we intend to close the gap in 24-25? There are three primary components to the plan to close the gap and achieve a structurally balanced budget. The first component is new revenue, which would consist of the city share addition and the state alliance ECS. Now, we are projecting at this time that the state alliance ECS would be at least $8 million more. And we indicated a request to the city to fund $16.7 million. I want to emphasize that it is a request and it is not yet approved. Component number 2 pertains to gap resolution strategies, and that would include savings derived when vacancies are covered by substitutes or there are time delays in hiring, plus continuation of our deficit prevention mode strategies and any other initiatives to generate savings. At this time, in this table, we have a figure entered of $3.5 million, which pertains only to projected savings from vacancies. I also want to emphasize before moving on that the goal is always to fill vacancies. We want all of our positions in schools, obviously, to be filled with certified staff. And we want our paraprofessional positions to be filled with qualified paraprofessionals. However, there is a continuing labor shortage, and so there may continue to be vacancies at some level in the new year. And the third component would be the carryover funds or surplus funds that are on deposit in the internal service fund. And in this plan, the amount remaining would be $12.8 million. So the grand total is $41 million. And again, the plan is comprised of three major components. And to reemphasize component one, the new revenue, that would consist of the city share and the state alliance ECS share. Next slide. Now, the net current expenditures per pupil, NCEP, this is a statistic used by the State Education Department to compare education spending across the districts. And we always report each year on the comparison between Bridgeport and its peer districts. Peer districts would be those districts that have the highest enrollment. And this is the January 24 report based on the prior year's EFS system report. EFS pertains to the education finance system. And so for 22-23, last year, Bridgeport had an NCEP of 16,506 per pupil with a pupil count of 19,089. Bridgeport has the highest enrollment in this chart of peer districts. The next highest would be Hartford with 18,596 students. But Hartford has an NCEP of 22,037, $5,500 higher. So that is significant. And it's important to realize that if we were funded equitably with Hartford, we would have over $100 million more. Waterbury has enrollment of 18,448, slightly under Hartford, and has an NCEP very close to Bridgeport of 16,499. Next slide. Having looked at our NCEP, we can now see that we are the 8th lowest of 159 districts in rank order. Next slide. And finally, we mentioned the gap resolution strategies. The superintendent has announced the Rising Together for Better Schools initiative. And phase 1 of that initiative pertains to closure of Edison School, Hall School, and the Bridgeport Learning Center as of June 30th, 2024. So if approved, those 3 sites would close as of June 30th, 2024. And we have projected cost savings of approximately $4 million after taking into account transportation and any other expenses. And that $4 million in savings would be the gross amount prior to any reallocation of resources that the superintendent may determine. Thank you. We've concluded the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Siegel. I just wanted to let the record reflect that board member Jennifer Perez has joined the meeting.
Make a motion.
Yes, Ms. Bain, your motion.
To approve.
We have a motion to refer this over to the full board. Is there a second?
I second it. Did I don't know.
You made the motion. We just need somebody to second it. No second to bring this updated budget to the board? Okay, I'll second that.
So if either of the two candidates would like to.
I don't know what that was. The next item on the agenda is discussion and possible, excuse me, let me back up. All in favor? Aye. Ms. Bain? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Bain?
Yes?
All in favor, say aye. Oh, did she say aye?
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm
Any
between
opposed?
meetings here. I apologize.
Yes. Any opposed?
No, for some, were you doing a discussion about the budget, something?
We're gonna discuss it?
Yeah, because I got questions, so, you know.
I'm sorry, Mr. Benahan, I'm still new at this. Now it is time for discussion. I apologize. Mr. Benahan, why don't you go first?
Well, first of all, Madam Chair, before the question and stuff like that, just because we got President's board member, and I asked you the last time, if that way we discussed and we talked, it's possible we can give permission to the board members we have here that can, ask questions about the budget. You be as the chair of this committee. It's possible, our board members we here, they want to ask questions about the budget. Could you give us permission for that?
I understand your concerns, Mr. Benahan, and the answer to that question is no, and I'll tell you why.
Hear the question, could you repeat it, please?
Can you repeat the question, Mr.
My
Benahan?
question was, if the Madam Chair, Mr. Casimir, can give permission to the board members we are here present, they want to know, if they want to ask questions about the budget, so everybody can know we are on the same page and the community know what's going on with the budget. That was my question. But the Madam Chair say no.
Right. So my answer to that question is, the board members, the rest of the board members will have an opportunity to speak at the 3 community forums that's coming up, as well as, have all of their questions. I'm sorry, can we please stop? I'm just trying to answer the question. Please, can we stop? I have respect for everybody in here, even though a lot don't respect me. I get it. But what I'm gonna ask you to do is please let me just do my job. Plus, I know that you have a good following of parents. I am so happy that you have parents fired up about their children's education, because this is the most parents that I've seen since I've been on this board, since last January, that are fired up about one subject. So I'm really, really happy. Whether it's good or bad, whether they like me or not, I'm just happy that they're here, because this is different for me. But the answer to that is no. But I would like for you, Mr. Benahan, to go ahead and continue with your questions so that we can get those answered and move the meeting along. Thank you.
One of my other questions for you, Madam Chair. Everybody can hear me, right?
Lean in the mic. Mic closer.
Everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, nice. My other question is, Madam Chair, why we have this presentation, it's 18 pages, and it's not in the package of the website for all board members that can see it? Why am I asking this? Because maybe like you said the last time, if we have this in the website, our package and our protocol, maybe the board members that we can email you questions before we have this meeting. and he's not here. Only the minutes, and that's it. So I find that's no lack of communication for the other board member because 18 pages, yeah, we have it here. But I would like to ask questions. But at this moment, just like that, it's a lot to read. You know, and I'm very glad to see Marlene Siegel give us some information. Thank you, Marlene Siegel, for that. But the next time with something like that, we need to have it in our package. So maybe the board members, they can ask questions before the meetings. The other question is, where is the food nutrition budget? That's very important that I don't see it. And I know we talked about this months back, but I don't see that. So can you answer me that question, Madam Chair?
Those are very good questions. And for your first question, I'm going to ask the superintendent, Dr. Levy David, can you tell us why this presentation was not on the website for us to view before this meeting?
Thank you. As you know, there's been quite a bit of work done around this budget. And I actually asked Marlene and Ms. St. Louis, Ms. Siegel and Ms. St. Louis to work on this presentation to add some additional pieces regarding school closures. So that was not completed until today. And I think, what was the second question? Was that for me or for?
I think it was for Mark, yeah.
Okay.
We just want to get to Mr. Benahan's second question. Food and nutrition, Ms. Siegel or Ms. St. Louis, either one of you want to answer about that. Can you let us know where exactly that falls in the budget?
Did you hear it?
Is it under, Ms. Siegel, can you hear us?
No. Was there a
Um,
question?
yes, please. Mr. Benahan wanted to know where exactly does food and nutrition, the budget for food and nutrition, where exactly is that on the slideshow or on in the budget?
Food and Nutrition Services is totally funded by federal and state reimbursement. We do have a one-page budget plan for food and nutrition, which you can give to the superintendent, and she can determine how to share that.
So the answer is that food and nutrition is under federal and state funds. Is that right?
Yes, we have shared it in the past, but this year the focus has been on the operating budget and the Rising Schools Initiative. And so that has been the main focus.
Thank you. We will definitely make sure that it's brought up at the next meeting. Ms. St. Louis, please make a note of that food and nutrition budget specifically for the next finance committee meeting, please.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Camila Levy Davis said they will, St. Louis and Ms. Siegel work with this like today. But my question is, how come 3 days back, our minutes and everything, this agenda, it was here, the minutes of 3 days back. How come they say they worked this today when in the protocol over here, 3 days back was posted? So I'm confused. So Dr. Camila Levy Davis, because you said work today, how come agenda is 3 days before that? Because I know before when you put agenda, you put the whole package, everything. I know we have that. And all the board members we here, we know that. But how you said, today in this agenda is 3 days, back. So I'm a little confused with that.
I think I answered the question. We've been working on the budget. So once this meeting is concluded, Marlene, you can certainly post it in the shared folder. Thank you.
Marlene, did you get that?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Email.
I heard
Marlene,
shared folder.
if you can have our team place the budget presentation in the shared folder once we're finished tonight. Thank you.
Which folder are you referring to?
The board shared folder.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Marlene.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome. Ms. Bain? Any questions?
Yes, I'm here.
Ms. Bain,
No
any
questions
questions?
at the moment.
No questions.
at the moment.
I have a couple of questions. And Dr. Levy David, you can just let me know if these are questions that you are going to answer or the team, Ms. Siegel and Ms. St. Louis will answer. I've spoken to a lot of people since this was announced, a lot of people. I've had calls, texts, I've sat down at diners and had conversations about this. And I'm pretty sure that every other board member, or I know that there are other board members that have also been bombarded, not bombarded, but just a lot of emails, a lot of teachers reaching out, a lot of parents reaching out, a lot of community members reaching out. One question that one teacher had was, can the BOC site stay open until CROSS is fully set up to merge the program there? And I wanted to, just get the answer to that question because I promised her that I would ask you.
One of the key pieces in any budget cycle is to assess how we're using the resources that we currently have and how we can use those resources better. Having a campus that holds 500 students, housing only 47 students is not fiscally responsible, especially when those are special education students in a building that is over a century old and not ADA compliant. We are in essence denying those students with their least restrictive environment by doing that. And so leaving BOC open would not be in the best interest of the students, nor in the best interest of being fiscally responsible stewards of our district dollars. And although that may be part of the common practice and past practice, it doesn't make it right. So at this time, my recommendation is not to continue to spend millions of dollars keeping one building open when we can serve the students at other sites.
Another question from the same teacher. I had to clarify for her that BLC is not closing down. They're not stopping the operation. Like, it would be illegal to shut down special ed. So I just want to make sure that is completely clear, that this program is moving into a safer building. Is that right, Dr. Levy?
Yes, the programs will be moving to other sites, other schools in the district, and the staffing would be moving with the students. Once CROSS is remodeled in order to accommodate our special needs students, then those programs would move to Wilbur Cross. But at this time, the recommendation is to move those programs back to school sites and to increase the staffing for each of those programs in the school sites.
Thank you. And the last question that I wrote down that was a burning question for this teacher is, I asked her, I said, so give me your idea of what the solution is on the failing problem. So we've already talked a little bit about the structure of the school and how unsafe it is. But I said, what is your suggestion on failing, like these schools failing children? And so she brought up the fact that she feels like teachers don't have enough of support. And her solution to the failing problem is that we have more teachers and more aides in the classroom first before we go through with this plan. What is your response to that?
Adding more teachers and more staff is not tenable if we continue to hemorrhage money with sites that are not even occupied up to 40%, where students are already suffering critical failure. So by closing the 6 sites that I'm recommending for closure, we will free up 161 positions that we can then deploy across the district to add that additional support that our teachers so sorely need.
Okay. Another question that I had that a board member had at one of our previous meetings is, did we ever get the comparison of the governor's budget versus our proposed budget?
I had referred that question to Marlene. I believe the question was whether or not the governor's budget recommendation was in our favor or not. So Marlene, could you share that piece with the board at this time?
Yes, so the governor included some items in his budget proposal which modified the plan that was approved by the state legislature in 2023. So for example, with regard to the charging of magnet tuition, meaning tuition per pupil for students attending inter-district magnet schools, the original plan, as approved in 2023, specified that the state would phase out the charging of magnet tuition over a period of a few years, starting with 24-25. And the interdistrict magnet operators would be allowed to only charge 58% of the prior year's tuition in 24-25, and then presumably it would phase out in the following year. So this was viewed as beneficial to districts and would have been beneficial to Bridgeport in that we do collect tuition for our interdistrict magnet schools, Discovery Magnet, and the 3 high schools at the Fairchild Wheeler campus. We also pay tuition to CES, the 6-to-6 magnet school, RCA, Regional Center for the Arts, and the Trumbull Agriculture School. So we're paying out more than we pay in. And so it would be beneficial to end magnet tuition with the understanding that in the original plan approved in 23, the state was going to make the district, all districts whole for the loss of magnet tuition. So there would have been an end to the charging of magnet tuition, and the state was supposed to provide through other allocations or through the state magnet grant by increasing the per capita amounts. State was supposed to increase the revenue received by the districts that were no longer allowed to charge magnet tuition. So overall, we viewed this as very beneficial to us. And we built into the budget plan that we presented this evening that original plan. So we built in that we would actually have savings for the outflow of magnet tuition. Now, the governor made a proposal. That doesn't mean that it's going to be approved, but that is one difference between the governor's proposal and the original plan that is noteworthy. Another area would be in the, there is what's called the Alliance Educator Diversity Grant. So the state, based on the law that was passed by the legislature in 2023, takes a percentage of our increase in the Alliance funding and diverts those funds to the purpose of recruitment programs and residency programs for new teachers. And they do that by placing the funds in a separate grant. Now, that is a very important purpose, and we have always welcomed funding in that Alliance Educator Diversity Grant. However, we also have to recognize, while that is favorable in terms of placing funds in a grant for an appropriate purpose, we also have to recognize that a percentage of our Alliance funding, the additional amount, is diverted. And so this year, it was 7% of the increase. Well, 7% of about $3 million was $232,000. Next year, if we were to receive $8 million and the percentage stays stable at 7%, that would be $560,000. And so that percentage would represent a lower level of operating revenue available to the district. So, there's a positive side and there's a negative side to that particular element. Now, also the governor in his proposal reallocated funds that were previously designated for education reform. He did not modify the phase-in of the ECS formula. So the growth in the ECS formula remains the same, and the increase that was noted in the report on the governor's budget for Bridgeport, that increase was the amount to which Bridgeport is statutorily entitled, and it would not be affected. However, if magnet tuition doesn't phase out as planned, since we built in the loss of magnet tuition, the phase out of magnet tuition, we would in effect have to compensate for that amount in our budget plan. And looking at the amount that was projected in the governor's proposal, and taking into account the magnet tuition component as well as the Alliance Diversity Grant, the net amount would be $8 million. And that is in fact the amount that we had projected in our budget plan, right? If those other factors change, then that 8 million may rise. So we're hopeful, very hopeful, that at the state level, the projection of 8 million will be realized, and perhaps it will be higher. But if it is higher, there may be offsets, as I mentioned. So one other point, just returning to my comment on the education reform funds. The governor reallocated funding, and so funding that might have been available for other initiatives that potentially could have benefited Bridgeport and other districts would no longer be available. And on a positive note, he did include in the plan making the LEAP grant, which is the attendance improvement grant, permanent. So that is also a positive development if approved by the state legislature. So we assume that means that it would be annualized and allocated on an annual basis through state funds once the ESSA grant ends.
Thank you very much for that answer. I have a different question right now. I guess it's just more of a comment, and Mr. Garcia, please back me up if I say anything wrong. But this is the last question that I have, or the last comment that I have. I've talked to parents that said, Akeisha, why do we have to move out of the building? Why can't we just make these buildings ADA compliant? Americans with Disabilities Act. Why can't we just build ramps and the doors and different things that the state requires? And so the reality of that is that it would actually be cheaper to tear the building down and to rebuild it into ADA compliance. When I talked to Mr. Garcia, I said, well, what is the process, for this to tear the building down option and to build it back up? And what he told me was very quickly. He said, first, that there needs to be a determination of whether it's environmentally safe to tear the building down. That's where it starts. And that costs $2 to $3 million. Then he said after that, it's called the design phase, which costs about $2 to $4 million. That's where we invite architects and engineers to basically design the new building. And then he said that With construction, building, it could take from 18 to 30 months, and it'll cost about 60 to $80 million. And he said that there was certain acreage that the state requires in order for the buildings to be ADA compliant. So I just wanted to give the community and the parents just an example of, like what it takes to actually tear the building down and to have another one built up. And Mr. Garcia, do you have anything at all that you could just add to that, or did I get that right? Thank you.
So you hit it on all points. I mean, the fact that these buildings are older, 100-year-old buildings, we know there's going to be environmental concerns. That's your $2 to $5 million, we'll call it. I'm taking these numbers based on the work that we're doing over at Winthrop School, which is a school that we will be looking to renovate as new, potentially build as new. There's new legislation up at the state that we're looking at, but it's a costly venture. The other piece is that the state, in order for you to qualify for certain construction grants, you need a certain amount of acreage for the site. Obviously, you have to have parking, you have to have play apparatus and things like that. So you have to take all of that into account. So if you don't have those things that are required by the state won't fund the state construction grant.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Mr. Benahan, any more questions?
Yes. Want to know exactly where the relay in Hanover is in the budget.
Actually, I was wondering that too, Dr. Levy David. Where do Relay and Hanover fit into this budget? Where exactly is that funding coming from within the budget? And are there outside sources? Please, are you going to do this?
Marlene will.
Oh, Marlene, did you hear that question?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the first part.
Yes, we were wondering where do Relay and Hanover fit in the budget? Where is that money coming from? What funding sources? Did you get that question? Okay.
Yes, so I have the answer. The Relay project is funded in ARP ESSER. It is funded for a 2-year period, as you know, as approved by the board, starting July 1 of 2024 for a 2-year period. And we are processing that agreement in the ARP ESSER grant. And we will pay fully for the 2-year period, $2.2 million from the ESSER grant. We are allowed to do this under the ESSER rules. ESSER services may be provided, as long as they're liquidated prior to September 30th, may be provided up to 4 years after the end date, which is 24. The Hanover project is funded in the Alliance ECS grant, which is part of our operating budget.
Any follow-up questions, Mr. Benahan?
Yeah, I have another question. Thank you, Ms. Siegel, for that. My other question is, I believe, from Dr. Levitt David. Want to know the school closure policy? I know we got a policy about school closing, so we have that.
She didn't hear you. Can you
That's
repeat?
what I understand.
Yeah.
The school closure policy, the policy. I know we got policy on you close the school. I know we have that.
Mhm.
So can you give me someone? I know parents. I want to know, and people, the community want to know about the policy.
The school closing policy is the 3600 series. And yes, we have it.
The 3600 series, Mr. Benahan.
I got it. And when you say, Dr. Camilla David, the student's gonna be transferred to another district, what district and where exactly in the school is where going?
None of our students are being transferred to another district. They're being transferred to other schools in our district. And those include Marin, Tisdale, Waltersville, Hooker, and several others that I probably can't remember right now. But Those are all pieces that will also be placed on the Rising Together website. By April, no later than April 19th, all parents will receive an individual notification about where their students are going to go and whether or not they will be receiving transportation assistance if they're within more than a mile distance away from the campus.
Sorry, can we please, we're almost finished, everybody, hang in there with us, please.
Dr. Camila Levatego, when you see transportation, I'm very glad you said that. But now you say if the student be 1 mile extra. My question for you is, if the students, let's say BLC, the student was there, now they're gonna transfer to another school. Now you say the student be 1 mile extra, something like that. So the student will have, mandatory, have that transportation because the school would, be new, stuff like that? Or have to be, like you say, 1 mile?
I think BLC is not a good example because BLC is not a campus,
Right.
it's
Okay.
a program.
Right.
Every single student at BLC is being bused to BLC. BLC is not their home school. So if you're referring to one of the other schools, if the parents will be provided with the information, they'll have several options. They can either accept the location where we're recommending the student attend next year, or they can request an inter-district transfer. However, we will only cover transportation if the student will be attending the campus that we recommend, because that's where the seats are available. If the parents want to bus their kids, say to, a school completely across town, then the parent will be responsible for that transportation.
So let me clarify.
It'll be the same transportation policy we have for any other school in the district. Nothing's different.
I just want to make sure that Mr. Benahan has heard everybody, please.
So let me clarify something in not BLC, like you said, my apology, let's do another school to clarify that for the record. So
Can we
my point-
please stop with I'm sorry, Mr. Benahan, I just need for everybody to focus on what you're saying. We're giving you an opportunity to speak. I just want everybody to be respectful, please. Thank you.
So my point of view as a parent, because I'm a parent before a leader, and I understand a lot of situations with parents here, they have 2 jobs, transportation, stuff like that. I don't feel that we trying to close the school because we're gonna renovate and we're gonna put a new or whatever's happening, that we had to follow the policy from the school. Just because the school you say you're gonna close it, I feel that whatever student be in that school is gonna be transferred to the school. For me, as a parent, as a leader, and the voice of the community, for every parent to follow me, I feel that we need to have transportation mandatory for this student will be transferred to another school. So because we change it, the school, now you say, oh, because the policy, because 1.5 miles, stuff like that, I don't find that fair. Because we're trying to change a lot of things and we change the parents' life. It's a change of 360 degrees. Because we have to understand, parents have to job, parents have to take buses, parents have to ride bicycle, stuff like that. So change all this to this parent. I feel that wherever student transfer to another school, they need to have mandatory transportation the way it is done. So the school is done and they go back again. I just want to put that for the record. Thank you, Madam Chair. No more questions, no more comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benahan. Ms. Bain, any more questions about the budget? Okay. I believe everybody has had an opportunity to speak. I don't have any more questions. The next thing to do is to vote for whether we're going to bring this renewed budget or this budget update to the full board at the next board meeting. And anybody want to make a motion? We already made the motion and it was seconded. We just need to vote. So, Ms. Bain, are you on the line? Just want to give her a chance, opportunity to unmute. She's her. Ms. Bain, you're muted. Just saw her go off and then back on. Ms. Bain? We're gonna put that aside and go to the next item on the agenda, if that's okay. We'll get back around to the vote. I just want to move the meeting along, if I may. The next item on the agenda is the discussion and possible referral to the full board of the school closures update. And I'll give it over to you, Dr. Levy David, for the update.
Sam, I'll leave it up to you to let me know when it's queued up. Thank you. The closures presentation, it's on the district website.
The vote is now, okay.
Ms. Bain?
Yes, yes, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I was in a very loud room a minute ago.
Okay. I think all in favor to refer over the updated budget to the board and say aye. Aye.
Aye. See?
Any opposed?
Yeah. Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries and will be moved to the full board at the next board meeting.
Thank you.
Ms. Bain, you can mute yourself back now. All right, coming up, the discussion and possible referral to the full board of the school closure update.
Thank you. So the entire purpose of the Rising Together for Better Schools initiative is to deliver the best possible learning environments for our students, while also being fiscally responsible with taxpayer dollars in our district. For a long time, that has not been in alignment in the district. When we have made budget cuts, we have made those budget cuts at the expense of students by cutting critical positions like librarians, like counselors, like school social workers, like kindergarten aides. These are critical, formative positions for all of our students. And I think that in order for us to move forward, we have to make sure that as we're making these financial decisions, we are doing so not in an adult-centered way, but in a student-centered way, and not at the expense of students and their birthright to a free and equitable education. And by equitable, not the best that we can do at a particular zip code, but the very best education, no matter what their zip code. And so that was part of the charge that I accepted this position in order to do. And that is what my intent is with this initiative. Next slide, please. As you can see, we have a proposed closure timeline in different phases. Phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. I'm not going to read it to you because it is on our website and anyone can read it at their leisure, but it does indicate that the phase 1 schools are Edison, Hall, and BLC. And if you're going to talk over me, you can step out of this room because this meeting is for people that want to hear and want to learn what is happening. Yep. Please. So if you're going to talk over me, this is a meeting for the board in presence of the public, not with the public. So if you're not going to allow people to talk and you're going to be disrespectful, you will be asked to leave.
We have community forums coming up that will be announced. I know that it's already posted, but it will be.
Don't be disrespectful there either. We're modeling for the students. We're not going to model for them something that does not work.
Okay, thank you. Please settle down, guys. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So Hall School was built in 1914. It's never been renovated. The school has a capacity of 385 and currently has 189 students. The percentage of students who met or exceeded the expectation on the state Smarter Balanced Assessment was 10%. The percent of students who met or exceeded the expectations for math is 7%. Those are dismal numbers. When you have students who are attending a school for 187 days, and only 10%, that means that only 18 students out of those students who were assessed passed the reading portion and the writing portion of the assessment. And of those that took the math test, even though they received education all year long, to only have 7%, that's actually less than 18 kids passing the test. Then we're just providing daycare. We're not educating kids. And we're creating a school to prison pipeline because there is no way for students to be successful in secondary education if they're not being successful in elementary education. And I will hazard that the poor environment in that school contributes to a lack of learning. When students have to be in buildings that are not properly ventilated, where they have exposure to asbestos and who knows what else, that is not setting them up for success. And I understand that we all want schools that are convenient and close to home. We all want that. But that is not always something that is in the best interest of students if the facility doesn't support their ability to be successful. So we want to ensure that they're in places where they actually have a gym that they can use. That gym is currently not built for 20th century, not even 20th century, much less 21st century students. The classrooms are very small, very stuffy. Can you go to the next slide, please? It's a steam heat building, which means you're either super, super hot or you're freezing. There's no way to regulate that. There's no mechanical ventilation in that facility. It is not ADA compliant, even though we should have been ADA compliant as of 1990. This building was not constructed based on 21st century standards for schools. There's asbestos in the floors and on the piping. There's an antiquated steam heating system that we cannot repair. We literally have to send for someone to fabricate parts for those systems. They no longer exist. The electrical system is outdated and at capacity, which means if you plug something else that is not geared, if you add like an extension cord, an entire grid will go out and you will have to go down to the breaker to restart all of the electricity in that segment of the building. Those are not things that we would tolerate in our homes, and we should not tolerate them for our kids. And I don't know who doesn't have pause about the fact that there are no fire sprinklers in that building. This is a building with tender age children from age 5 all the way to age 12. No fire sprinklers. So in the case that the PA system is down and someone is incapacitated, we still have to rely on the adults in that building to make sure every child gets out safe because there are no fire sprinklers in the building. If that doesn't give you pause, it gives me pause. Also, there is a portable trailer there that is way past this. Everything in this building is past its useful life. This is what we call a building at the end of life stage, which means the only thing to do with this building is to demolish it because it costs more to try to upgrade it. It costs more to try to upgrade it than it would to build a brand new school. That's where we are with Hall School. I didn't build Hall School. None of you were here when Hall School was built. Your children were not here when Hall School was built. And I know that when you send your children to an elementary school, you have an image of your child playing in a safe playground, your child eating in a cafeteria that is well lit and sunny, classrooms that are well lit and sunny, hallways that are wide and ample, furniture that is new and updated, and not in a situation where you don't know where the next leak is going to come from. I was there just last week and a steam pipe burst in the basement. We cannot continue to expose children to danger just because we want a school in the neighborhood. Give me the opportunity to continue to advocate with our state, city, and federal leaders to have proper schools built in Bridgeport for all of our kids. This is why I'm here. It is my only objective in being here is to ensure that we can transform every single child's life and family in one generation. And we do that by ensuring that they have learning environments they can be proud of. Our students, when I go out in the district and meet with them and talk to them, they are very aware of the disparities and the differences between where they go to school and where their friends in Trumbull and Fairfield and Shelton go to school, and how different their schools look from those schools. And they believe that it's highly unfair that just because they live in Bridgeport, they have to tolerate that. Just because I live in Bridgeport doesn't mean that I am deserving of a school that doesn't meet 21st century standards. Y'all don't have to clap for that, but it's the truth. Kids are not deserving of that. We have to stop making decisions that are adult-centered, and we have to start advocating for the kids. A lot of the parents are products of the Bridgeport school system. Their grandparents probably and great-grandparents probably went to Hall. But they're not expecting their kids and their grandkids and great-grandkids to also go to school in less conditions. When they were in that school, it was in better condition. It is in worse condition now than it was when they went to school. Everything in that building is crumbling. You would not allow your family to stay in a crumbling home for it to fall on your head. And we should not do that for our kids. Next slide, please. Edison was built in 1935. It's never been renovated. The school has capacity for 415 students. The enrollment is 190. Again, we're not even at 50% enrollment in that school. Students who met or exceeded expectations in reading, only 10%. I wasn't here for that. I'm here to fix that. Students who met or exceeded expectations for math, 5%. That's what people should be really angry about right now, because you're doing what you're supposed to. You're getting the kids dressed every day. You're making sure they have a nice breakfast, or that you get them there in time to eat breakfast at school, and that they're learning and being successful. You go to work to do what you're supposed to do and meet your responsibilities. You're expecting us to meet our responsibilities on this end and educate the kids and ensure that they're better off than where we found them at the beginning of the school year. And they're worse off than where we found them. Do you know how hard it is for a 4th or a 5th grader who is reading on a 1st grade level to get caught up? For every single year of growth, a year of growth is supposed to happen in a year. 187 days is a school year. So now we're telling this 4th or 5th grader who is not meeting standards that they have to get caught up to their grade level before going to high school. We're giving them an impossible task, and we're not accepting responsibility for our role in their failure, for our negligence to educate them properly, for our failure to provide them with the resources to be successful, with the right intervention, with the right staffing. We have to accept responsibility for that. And we can't do it by saying it's okay for a child to go to a non-ADA compliant building built in 1935 and never renovated. Do you know the amount of dirt, dust, and allergens that accumulate just in your house when you don't change the carpet? Imagine a school built in 1935 that has never been renovated. Next slide, please. I walked these schools when I first came to Bridgeport, and I was brought to tears by the fact that kids had to go to school there every day. Every single day. I could not believe that in 21st century America, the richest country in the world, we have kids going to schools that wouldn't be fit for the third world. That's the conversation we need to have. How does this happen in the biggest city in Connecticut? Biggest city, most diverse population. How do we get to the point where we're sending kids to schools that are not fit for the third world? How do we get there? And how do we get out of it? There's asbestos in the floors and in the piping, because that's how they built schools back in the day. They used materials that they felt were going to last a century, and they have. But those materials also cause cancer, bronchitis, asthma, and a slew of other ailments in small children. Environmental health and safety was not the order of the day in 1914 or in 1935. It is today. Before we open any facility, there has to be an environmental study to ensure the air is fit. And the air purifiers that we have are not going to keep up with everything that is in that building. Some of it, we don't even know what's in that building.
Shh, please.
The steam heating system, antiquated, cannot be replaced. No mechanical ventilation. One restroom per floor. Hall only has restrooms in the basement. So how about you being the teacher that has a child in kinder that has to go to the basement, or a first grader that has to go to the restroom in the basement without supervision? We send kids with a prayer every day to the restroom in those buildings because there's no line of sight between the teacher in the classrooms and those restrooms that are on different floors. School safety cannot be maintained in buildings designed for the 20th and 19th century.
Please.
Last chance, Ms. Carvalho, and then I'm going to ask you to leave. Last chance. I've been nice.
Please don't. All right, let's just maintain order, everybody, please.
It's not a debate. All right. There's no on-site parking at Edison School. And again, guys, there are no fire sprinklers because they weren't required by state statute in schools in 1935. But thank goodness we require them now. Next slide, please. Bridgeport Learning Center. That school was built in 1895. 30 years after the end of the Civil War. And 10 years after Edison invented the light bulb. Your kids are going to school in the worst maintained museum in the country. It's never been renovated. Again, not a debate. It's never been renovated. Capacity for 400, there's 47 students there now. 10% meeting in literacy, and only 6% meeting in math. Well, I expect special ed students to get the same services as any other student in the country because that's what they deserve. I have kids in my family who are special ed, and I would not allow them to go to a school like that. If you love your kids, you don't let them go to schools like this. You do not. And if they're special ed, you raise your expectations because of disability.
There is no crowd, please. There is no back and
The question was, well, they're special ed. What do you expect? That horrifies me. You're saying that anybody with a disability is not worthy of a good learning environment, is not worthy of a modern 21st century school? Or what's even more frightening, maybe you're saying that special ed kids can't learn. And those are the attitudes that are very, very dangerous, okay? Those attitudes are very dangerous.
Please stop talking.
I'm not gonna allow those attitudes towards special ed kids. I'm sorry.
Please stop talking. Please stop.
When somebody says something about special ed kids, I'm going to respond. Because I'm responsible for every kid, and they're watching these board meetings and they're hearing people say horrible things. And saying they're special ed, what do you expect, is a horrible thing. Next slide, please. The Bridgeport Learning Center is not ADA compliant. It is a maze of stairs just to get in and out of that building. The ADA laws, again, went into effect in 1990. There is asbestos in the floors and the piping. Same antiquated heating system, same mechanical ventilation. I have been in those classrooms. They're not comfortable for kids with disabilities. They're not comfortable spaces at all. And even the window units don't begin to change the environment in those classrooms. Not to mention the electrical capacity is outdated. So even if we put more window units, all it's gonna do is burn out the grid. There are no fire sprinklers in BLC. So here we have kids with disabilities in a building with no fire sprinklers. Next slide, please. Bryant School, Bryan School was built in 1912 and it was renovated in 1997. It has capacity for 550 and currently holds 313 students. Bryan School has 15% of their students meeting or exceeding expectations in literacy, and only 6% of their students meeting or exceeding in math. Next slide, please. Bryan is an interesting school in that the renovations that were done were not done up to code. And so that school is actually very, very unsafe. There are pieces of that campus that are falling apart as we speak. On-site parking is limited, and the parking lot is constantly in need of repaving. The retaining wall in the rear of the building is collapsing. Hallway walls need resurfacing, and the concrete subfloor is deteriorating. It's crumbling due to moisture, due to constant moisture and water drips. These are not things we can fix. And I defer to the professionals in their assessment because I am not an engineer, nor am I a building inspector. But this is what they have found as they have audited each one of these facilities, because each one of them has been through a comprehensive audit prior to me coming with this recommendation to the board. Next slide, please. Dunbar School was built in 1984 and has never been renovated. It has capacity for 895, but only 403 students enrolled. The students who meet expectations in reading, 12%. 12%. The students who meet or exceed expectations in math, only 5%. Next slide, please. The condition of Dunbar for students is deplorable. It is a very dark building. It needs some upgrades in order to make it a better learning space for kids. But one of the most disturbing things for me about Dunbar is the presence of the liquor store directly across the street from the school, where drunks and addicts frequent on a daily basis. And there's nothing that the school staff can do about that.
Please, can we stop the talking from the audience, please? Again.
It's also surrounded by tenements where there's questionable activities happening on a daily basis. So our students, as they come to and from school, that's the first thing that they see, and it's the last thing that they see every day. My recommendation is to take Dunbar, which is a very large space, in order to support designing a state-of-the-art adult education center. We have adults in this district who are clamoring for adult education, and we have young people in need of their GEDs and in need of the ability to have a restart when they have not been successful with their K-12 schooling. And right now, we are spending money renting facilities throughout the city in order to accommodate those needs with a wait list that is never empty. By creating this facility, we can use the state funds that we already receive for adult ed to give them a state-of-the-art adult learning facility where they can even have access to college-level coursework. Additionally, the recommendation is to create a new welcome center for all students who are new to the country, non-English speaking families, and to support them with enrollment, education, and onboarding as they enter Bridgeport Public Schools. And finally, to reopen the much needed parent center, restore it, which was closed in 2012, I believe it was, during the budget cuts. That was one of the things that was cut. Again, I'm talking about not cutting things that are critical for this community, critical for our kids. As our kids grow and get better, their families also need to be able to have a place to grow and get better. And that is the recommendation in order to ensure that we are providing wraparound services and education for our adults as well, no matter where they come from or what language they speak. Next slide, please. Wilbur Cross is the final school that I'm recommending for closure. The school was built in 1969. It was renovated in 2012, has capacity for 600 and currently enrolls 324 students. The students who meet or exceed expectations in literacy, only 7%. Only 7%. Students meeting or exceeding expectations in math, only 3%. What's 3% of 324? 9 students, my interim CFO said 9 students. So we have an entirely staffed building where only 9 students demonstrated that they were able to meet minimal expectations for math last year. Wilbur Cross is a facility that is in pretty good shape. And with a few tweaks, we can transform Wilbur Cross into what I'm recommending. Next slide, please. For a long time, special ed and special ed students have been the afterthought of what has been done and planned in this district. We have a very large population of special education students. What's the percentage, Dr. Saki? 22% of our students district-wide, out of 19,700, 22% of our students are in special ed. We need our very own in-district specialized instruction center where we can provide tailored programming for our students, where we can provide educational innovation, where we can ensure that they're engaged, and we can ensure we're meeting diverse needs and maximizing their educational outcomes, where we can actually create specialized areas for them to learn, where autistic kids can have sensory rooms, where our fragile kids can have therapeutic and OT settings that are designed for all of the therapy services that they need. We have visited several across the state that are amazing. Right now, we send kids to these places at the tune of $100,000, sometimes up to $900,000 per student, when we could have our very own facility in the district to serve them in-house, where their parents don't have to put them on a bus to Hamden. They don't have to put them on a bus to go to the state capitol or to New Haven or to Stanford. We can actually have the kids right here in Bridgeport. We want to reduce our out-of-district placements, and we also want to maximize opportunities for our students to experience full inclusion and their least restrictive environment. It's impossible for us to do that when they're not even in our district. We will no longer sentence students to special education for life. To be qualified for special ed in Bridgeport today means being in SPED for life, being in SPED from K through 12. You get into SPED, but you don't get out. It's a life sentence. Why? Because we have cut the resources needed to ensure that we are able to serve them individually according to their specific needs. We will not be making cuts that impact kids. As we close these facilities, it frees up 161 positions in a range of certifications that we can now deploy for specialized learning. We can now deploy in order to have team teaching in our classrooms, in order to have interventionists in our classrooms, to help our students that are behind and need to get caught up. They need to get caught up before they leave our schools. There are tons of services out there for kids as long as they're under 18. Once they turn 18, those services shrink to nothing for them. They are forgotten, and they take their place in the school to prison pipeline because they don't have a lot of options and they don't have a lot of opportunity. And it starts with addressing these 22% of our kids that we have in special ed that we are sentencing not to be successful because we don't have a facility in this district to serve them. I don't mean to get preachy, but I'm very sensitive about special ed. Lots of people walking around, unless you see them in a wheelchair, you don't realize they have a disability. They have a cognitive difference. They have a neurodivergence. that prevents them from functioning in the traditional setting without the opportunity to learn and have supports, without the opportunity to grow and improve, without the opportunity to be with their age level peers in the regular school setting. We are not staffed to do that in Bridgeport. We have to staff to do that. It's not we should, we have to. Because these students have a birthright to a free and equitable education, and we don't have the right to deny that. No one in this room has the right to deny that. The other piece that we're going to add to the top floor at Wilbur Cross is our very own in-district expulsion center. When our kids are expelled, they go all over the state. And oftentimes they never make it back to us. I hear about kids that used to be in our school setting that were expelled a year or two ago or three, and they went off to an alternative setting or to some other setting, and they were caught in a school shooting. And now we don't have an opportunity to intervene on that child's behalf. They're gone. That's not even a statistic. That's a life lost. If we're going to expel kids, we have to be able to provide them with adequate grade level tier 1 instruction and supports. They have to be able to access tier 1 curriculum, research-based curriculum. We have to be able to have right-sized classrooms for them. And we have to reintegrate them back into our school system for them to be successful, because that is their God-given right as Americans to have that. And the fact that we have denied that to kids for so long in this district breaks my heart. Breaks my heart. We have to do better. We must do better. We will do better by our kids. And we will help and support our parents in every way that we can with the disruption of these closures and what they represent. They represent with a break from the past. And a completely new journey into a very, very promising future. We have to break from the past in order to better serve our kids today. We have to break with buildings that are already broken. We have to break with systems that are broken. I respect every person here advocating. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that I had an opportunity to speak to you directly and present this information to you directly, because I want to make sure that you have the information directly from me. There's nothing here that is being presented to you that is in any way biased or in any way providing any mistruths about the condition of our buildings. No other superintendent would have cameras taking pictures of buildings, would have reporters walking through school sites. They don't want you to see all the different ways that we could be sued, but I do. I do. I want to take the veil off of people's eyes about where their kids are going to school every day and why it's not okay, why it's not acceptable, and why I am filled with righteous anger on your behalf that students have been subjected to this for over 20 years. No child should have to go to school in this environment. Not mine and not yours. And I say not mine because mine is a student here in Bridgeport. So I will ask you, each of you, as you are going out into the community, share this information and let people decide for themselves what's best for their kids. You little, small group of people don't have the right to decide for over 144,000 citizens in Bridgeport. You don't. You don't. You don't represent 144,000 people. You don't. You have the right to ask every question, every single question. But everybody needs to be informed. A lot of times when these things are happening, a lot of parents are silent because they just don't know. They don't know that their kids are going to school in these environments. They don't know the dismal performance rates because they get a notification that their child is on the honor roll. And my question is, what is that honor roll rating based on? If the child cannot read based on state standards and can't do math based on state standards, whose honor roll are they on?
I'm sorry, no.
Whose honor roll are they on? These are the things that I have seen since I arrived in this district. Children on the honor roll, when I see the data and I know that that's not really true. The grading is not aligning with what the kids know and are able to demonstrate that they've mastered. The grading is not aligned. We will be addressing that as well this coming school year. We have to have grading that is aligned to what students know and are able to demonstrate that they have mastered, not based on whether or not the child is quiet and well behaved, not based on whether or not they don't talk back, not based on whether or not that parent didn't return my phone call, not based on whether or not a child is completing their homework and turning it in. What are they able to demonstrate that they have mastered and are able to do at the end of the school year? And if it's not reflective on the state assessment, the state assessment is testing a minimum expectation, not a maximum, a minimum. So if the students at these schools are not able to meet that minimum, we are failing them. They may be coming home with an honor roll sticker, but we are failing them is what I'm trying to say to you. You don't have to agree with everything I'm saying. I don't require everybody to agree. Even my team is not required to agree with me. They can dispute, they can bring facts. It's an open discussion at that table. And they know that I value their opinions just like I value yours. But it has to be based on real facts of what students are experiencing, not on nostalgia of what was 40 years ago. They're not going to school in your grandpa's building. They're going to school in this building that is not serving them, that is not providing a safe environment, where they don't even have monitoring when they go to the restroom in a different floor. That's the reality that I'm fighting against. That's the reality. Next slide, please. So here's the financial impact. All told, these 6 schools cost us $24.2 million to run. That's all of the bills that we pay to maintain a facility, all of the staffing, and everything that we put into the building. By the way, all of these buildings have brand new furniture in them, brand new furniture. So our students are not sitting on the floor. If we are to close these 6 schools, we stand to save $7 million annually. $7 million annually. And that's without laying off any of our teachers or any of our staff that we so critically need in this district.
Please keep the chatter down, please. Guys, please, let's listen. For those of us who really want to listen, and so they can hear, please. Thank you.
We have to get more efficient with our resources. We have to get more efficient, and we have to get right with what we're delivering and providing for students. We have to get right. There is no future for the city of Bridgeport if we cannot get this piece right. If we're not graduating students and sending them on to college, we are continuing to shrink the middle class in this city. Everything that we do here has long repercussions for generations of kids in the city of Bridgeport, and we have to make it right. Next slide, please. We will not be laying off any staff this school year, and my goal is not to have layoffs at all. My goal is to use our staffing resources differently and to ensure that our students who are behind grade level are able to have the support that they need so that we can close gaps and get them caught up. I want to ensure that we have graduation coaches from our students from grade 9 all the way through grade 12. They should have graduation coaches who keep track of how they're progressing and how they're doing from the time they enter 9th grade until the time they graduate. But we can't do that if we keep pouring money into systems that don't work. All of the things that you say you want for kids, they cost money. And we can't keep robbing from Peter to pay Paul because we're robbing from Peter and Paul is still not getting much. Next slide. So what I want to, is that the end of it? Thank you. What I want to get across to everyone is that these closures are not meant to inconvenience anyone. They're not meant to have parents be unhappy with the system. They're really meant to make right services that we have not been delivering to our students in this district, and to bring forward services that are critically needed, both for our specialized learners and our adults that so sorely need our services. We have 700 adults in our adult learning program in Bridgeport. We have the largest adult learning program in the state. And we have a waiting list that we're not able to serve because we don't have the space. We want to be able to serve. We can run a morning shift, a midday shift, and an evening shift, and a night shift at Dunbar for our adults. We can do that. They can come in and have their courses and still go to work. They don't have to quit working to go to school. This is 21st century thinking. How do we do these things differently to help the people that need it most? And we can have a specialized learning center and an expulsion center in-house so that we're not entrusting our most precious resource, our kids, to other districts or other entities or other businesses. Businesses. All of these places where we send kids, they're businesses. They're in the business of making money. They're in the business of charging tuition, of charging security, of charging a lot of fees for every child that we send. And that's money we're taking away from the kids that we could serve them better right here. We haven't done that so far in Bridgeport, but what I'm telling you is we will, we can, and we will. We now have the expertise, we have the staffing to do it, and we just have to get your support in order to begin the process of transforming this district and giving kids a shot, a real shot at being successful. Not a shot that relies on them earning a scholarship to run track or play basketball, but a shot at being scholars who graduate ready for school, ready to compete, ready to go to any school that will have them, ready to be successful, ready to go from school to work. Infomark just gave me 10 scholarships for our kids here in the district. They want kids who want to go from school to work to learn what it takes to be engineers in a water treatment facility. That's right here. Those are real jobs right now. We want more of those partnerships for our kids. But we need to educate them. They can't go to Infomark to work in the water treatment facility when they're not mastering elementary math, when they're not mastering elementary reading. They have to read technical manuals and safety manuals to work there. If you're not literate and you don't know math, you can't do that. That's just one example. Continuous businesses that are reaching out with opportunities for our kids. And we want to make sure that every single child in the district can avail themselves of those opportunities. But we have to be really strategic, and we have to do it now. There's not going to be a better time to do this later. We have to do it now. The opportunity is now. I want to thank you all for your attention, and I'll open the floor for questions from committee members.
All right, Ms. Bain. Ms. Bain, do you have any questions? Once again, Ms. Bain, any questions? All right, I'll go back to her. Mr. Benahan.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Camila David. You see the information, you give it to the community. You see the information, you give it to the board members where we are here. That's what we want. Because without communication, we're not going nowhere. And it's true that the school needs to be fixed. It's true the school has to be new. And not personal for so many years before I was a board member. And boy, a board member. Now, I know the school has to be fixed. The school has to be closed. I see in person how disgusting they are for our children, and for our staff, and for our parents. I witness all this situation that you're showing in the picture. It's not, you see it, but when you're personal and you see that, you need to be, I feel the run. It's bad that our students, being in the school. And I agree with you. But Dr. Kamala, you have to understand that knowledge is new for you. This situation was supposed to happen for so many years back, before you was here. Money was there for the school, but guess what? They used it for something else. And they look like, we care later about the students. Because the student was not priority for them. They will sit down in the board or whoever in the city because they want title, they want position, they want power. Us, we fight. All these people fight because our students are priority, you know? But this is not new. And now you be, wow, why the formers before never take care? And trust me, when I was there my first 4 years, I speak and I got proof and I can show you, we need to do this, we need to do that, especially BLC, especially students. I don't have students, especially, but the student we have here, like you say, 22%, right? They are my students, they are my kids, because I care about them. And I got nephew, you know, I got niece, I got my best friends have a granddaughter.
Absolutely.
You know, and we need to take care of it. They're not parenting, we got the law, we got the policy, we need to follow that. But you see the information you bring out to the community, this is what we need. Because without them, we cannot do nothing. And then without you, the board, you cannot do nothing. That's why we have to sit down. Excuse me, please. We need to sit down and communicate and respect each other. I don't have problem to sit down with you every day and sit down, and you know that. You know that, Kamala. I respect you. The same way I want people to respect me, I respect you. But with good communication, it's very successful. So us, the board, working with you, it will be fine because I know the community will ask any board members, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Trevor, Mr. Baptiste, Mr. Medina, you know, all of them. What happened? What's going on? So we can give questions and we can give answer. But if we don't know nothing about you, we don't know what's going on, we're going to be what, when, how, she, who, you know, we're going to be what's going on. And then the community come out upset. And then we're like, why happened? And then you feel, and with all due respect, we're not attacking you. We want just answer our question like you did today. And you give the information to everyone. I always say that. We respect and good communication is a great successful. And I thank you, you know, the information you give it to us today. And yes, people, we need to fix the schools. It's not fair that our children, your son, your daughter, your granddaughter, be in the school. It's not good. So thank you, Dr. Kamala David. Just want to say that for the record.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I have something to say.
Ms. Bain, go ahead.
I just want to make a motion to bring this to facilities up to date and to the board, the bigger board. That's all I want to say. I want to make a motion to do that. My computer is at 18% as well. So I don't know how much longer I'm beyond.
Not much longer at all. There has been a motion to refer this school closures update to the board at our regular board meeting. Can I get a second?
I second that.
All right, it has been
Awesome.
moved and seconded, and all in favor, obviously, aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I just wanted to remind everybody, I know everybody got this notice, but the very first community forum is happening tomorrow, March 12th, at Edison School at 6:30 p.m. with a tour available at 6. Anybody that wants to tour the school, show up at 6 o'clock. Wednesday, March 13th, we have another community forum at Hall School Gym on Claremont Avenue in Bridgeport. That audience is for Hall parents and staff. The time is 6:30, and there is a tour available at 6 o'clock as well at Hall, and that's on Wednesday. On Thursday, March 14th, Harding High School, the forum will be at Harding High School on 379 Bond Street, and these are regarding phase 1, and the audience is community members. So you have 3 opportunities, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but all this is on the website and has been posted. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So move.
Mr. Benahan has moved to adjourn the meeting. I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody, for showing up here tonight. Thank you. Have a good night.